Hi, I'm Urvashi from TwoSleevers.com, that's my blog, and I'm walking you through how to take the principles behind taking a recipe that has been created for stovetops, slow cookers, ovens, etc., and adapting it to your pressure cooker. So I feel like if you understand the principles, you could take any recipe and adapt it. So this is part of a 4-part series. The first video I talked about how is pressure cooking different. Because of those differences, what are some of the implications for how you would have to adjust a recipe? And in this case, I'm going to talk a little more specifically about adapting a recipe for oven, stovetop, or slow cooker and making it work for a pressure cooker. So the first thing that's going to happen if you look at a stovetop recipe is your pressure cooker recipe is going to need less water and less time. So if you did nothing but adjust 2 things, it's not the best way to adapt a recipe, but those things are absolutely essential. You are going to typically have to reduce the water almost invariably, and it's going to take less time under pressure. Okay, so if you do nothing else but those 2 things, you're kind of almost halfway there. In a slow cooker, what's going to happen is you'll see recipes for a slow cooker that require you to put what might be considered quick cooking vegetables as well as slow cooking vegetables as well as meats all in at the same time, and under that low pressure the vegetables actually take a little bit longer and the meat falls apart a little bit faster in a slow cooker. That's not what happens in a pressure cooker. In fact, it's almost the opposite. So the lighter, less dense vegetables that have a lot of water are going to cook a whole lot faster. So if you're trying to cook, for example, summer squash and meat together, or beans with broccoli or whatever, or cauliflower in it, it's going to be a bit of a mess if you try to do it all at the same time. So the recipes that will work in a slow cooker by dumping everything in a pressure cooker, you can make them, but you may have to do this in multiple stages. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to take a recipe that calls for meat and vegetables and show you how to split it up so you'll get some idea of how to do that. So when you're adapting from a stovetop, less water, less time. In a slow cooker, less water, less time, and be cognizant of the meats and vegetables that you're trying to put in at the same time, or pasta and vegetables, or beans and vegetables, whatever it is. And then let's talk about the oven. So in an oven, obviously, browning is going to occur. A pressure cooker has heat, but it doesn't allow for browning. So a lot of times what happens is you may cook something in the pressure cooker, like for example, I have both a chicken shawarma recipe on TwoSleevers.com, and I also have a doner kebab where you can make gyros at home, which is incredible, by the way. But when those meats, when the doner kebab loaf comes out of the pressure cooker, it doesn't look very appetizing, to be honest. It's like this gray, steamed looking lump of meat. Now inside it's extremely moist and extremely delicious, but it's not the most appetizing thing, shall we say. So in a situation like that, I always end up broiling it, and that little broiling allows the moisture to stay within the loaf. It allows it to stay moist, and it gives an attractive appearance, and at the same time I haven't turned on my oven for hours on end, which is quite helpful. So just be aware that if you make recipes that look really brown and delicious from an oven, many of those can be adapted. Just be prepared to be able to brown it later on. Now, you may know that it's actually possible to make cakes in your Instant Pot, and I have quite a few recipes that allow you to do that. But the one thing to be aware of is that because of the moist environment, things like yeast and baking soda, baking powder act a little bit differently. So sometimes it takes a little more of those to be able to provide the rise that you would need. So just to recap really quickly, on any recipe from stovetop, less water, less time. Any recipe from a slow cooker, less water, less time. Be cognizant that you may not be able to cook different types of meats and vegetables at the same time. And anything in an oven, all of those things, plus remember to budget time to brown the meat or the vegetable or the casserole or the cheese that you're melting, whatever it is. And just be aware that you may have to increase the leavening agents in order for the cake or whatever to rise as much in the pressure cooker. And if you go to TwoSleevers.com, there are several low-carb keto cakes that I've made in there that work really well, actually. And some of them, to be honest, that don't. Like I have this flourless brownies recipe. It's amazing, but it falls flat really quick, and I haven't been able to fix it. It tastes good enough, so I haven't cared. But you may have to experiment a little bit to be able to figure out kind of what's going to work. Okay, so that was the third one, which was how to take the principles of adapting a slow cooker, oven, or a stovetop recipe. And in the next video, I'm going to talk you through a beef stew recipe so that you get an idea of when I look at a recipe, what are the types of changes that I might make. And one thing I do want to mention is I have a cookbook out on Amazon right now. It's called Indian Instant Pot, and it's got 56 recipes that are really easy to make, so I do hope you'll check it out. And this is Urvashi, and my blog is TwoSleevers.com. Thank you.